Did you know that I can't even count on my hand how many complete manuscripts of the Quran we have that are dated from the 7th century? The reason I can't count on my hands how many we have is because, well, you have zero.
Christian apologists have the most dishonest double standards when comparing Quranic manuscripts to biblical manuscripts. And I'll demonstrate to you why this is not even a contest in any shape or form. Starting off with the 1st century of the Quran versus the Bible, there are 0 manuscripts from the 1st century of the Bible, and there are 4,000 pages of Quranic manuscripts. That's right, there are no manuscripts of the Bible within the first 100 years of Jesus. While there are thousands of pages of Quran manuscripts. Now you'll notice the wording that he used though. Where is the first full Quran manuscript? Yet they never hold that same standard for the Bible. The earliest Bible manuscript in the 2nd century is not even 4 lines. It is 4 pieces of 4 lines. Meanwhile, the earliest Quran manuscripts, even the ones within the 1st century, still contain the majority of the Quran. Of course, a lot of it is worn away, just like the Bible manuscripts, because it's very old. We've got many manuscripts within the 1st century of the Quran, which together adds the entire Quran. This one, for example, contains 60% of the Quran. The rest of the pages have worn away over time. This one has pretty much the entire Quran, although some might date it slightly later than the 1st century of the Quran to the 2nd century, but boom. Let's quickly hold the Bible to the same standard. The earliest complete manuscript of the Bible is Codex Amantianus, or I don't know how to pronounce that. 700 years removed from Jesus. 7 centuries. It comes after Islam itself. You might be like, wait, what about Codex Sinaiticus? What about Codex Vaticanus? No, Codex Sinaiticus and Codex Vaticanus have almost all the Bible, but they are missing the added verses, such as like John 7:53 to John 8:12. These things are added in the 5th and 6th century, so you won't see them in you'll see them in your modern day Bible, but they won't be in the ancient Bible because those stories have not been added in. You might be saying, well, isn't there one about 410 years after Jesus, Codex Alexandrinus? But no. That one is still missing a lot of the verses because it's worn off over time. It does have Mark 16 verses 9 to 11 and John 7 53 to John 8:11. It does not have the full New Testament. So the official first full manuscript of the New Testament is going to be 700 to 800 years depending on how you date it after Jesus. Now this is a blaring problem, so to deflect from that they'll go, we have 5,700 manuscripts, not mentioning that 94% of those come almost 1,000 years after Jesus, as in they have no text critical value. Or they will start mentioning early manuscripts. Well, we have a couple early manuscripts in the 2nd century, 100 years after Jesus, not mentioning they're this. We've got this. Okay, whoa, beautiful. Is that New Testament manuscript? Yes. Is that the whole New Testament? Is that even one page of the New Testament? No. But then they apply a whole new double standard to the Quran. Well, you have no complete manuscripts within the first 100 years after Jesus. Mind you, they have 0 within the first 100 years and pieces and fragments within the 2nd century. But no, when we have these within decades of the Prophet ﷺ, no. Well, some of the pages rotted away. Therefore, you don't have the full Quran. Their propaganda wording is so well that you're like, if you actually look at the data, you're like, wait, what? Like the Quran has 250,000 manuscripts. Like, it's an absolute joke debating this bar for bar. You had 4,000 pages before you had this little piece. To get remotely big Bible manuscripts like the way we have for the Quran of this, you need to wait until around the late 4th century to get Codex Sinaiticus and Codex Vaticanus. And even those themselves aren't the full Bible because they're still missing some of the additions that are added within the 5th and 6th centuries. It's so dishonest. It's just so dishonest how these people debate because they know that if they actually had a straight up academic bar for bar, they would... There's no context. They use misleading statements to mislead their audience. Imagine if I go right now, well, technically, I have no losses, and Muhammad Ali has losses in the ring, therefore I'm stronger than Muhammad Ali. I mean, yeah, he has losses and I don't, but that isn't actually a significant argument. Saying 5,700 Greek manuscripts or 25,000 manuscripts in all different languages, but they're 1,000 years later than Jesus with a couple exceptions of tiny pieces being early, that's not really an argument. That doesn't give anything. Muslims can do that argument too. We have 250,000 manuscripts with just 2 museums of the Quran. If we keep going all around the world, we could get way more than 250,000. But that's not actually an argument for preservation. That's just a numbers game to make you think, whoa, well, yeah, for sure the Bible's preserved. There's no way. That's why the consensus of biblical scholars is that the Bible's been changed. The question is how much, not if it's been changed. There's no debate on if it's been changed or not. That doesn't even cover the authorship of the earliest Gospels and their anonymity and the problem with the patristic references, as well as the problem with the historical attribution of these Gospels by Irenaeus. Like this is just one problem with the Bible. We haven't got to the other problems.